Welcome back, dear viewers. Egypt is hosting the 9th session of the Conference of the States Parties to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. The convention kicked off yesterday and will last until the 17th of this month in Sharm el-Sheikh, the city of peace, with the participation of 144 countries around the world, and of course hundreds of representatives from NGOs and thousands of participants around the world. Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli said that corruption significantly affects the quality of life, and therefore improving citizens' quality of life curbs the spread of corruption. Madbouli made his remarks during the opening 9th session of the Conference of the States Parties, the COSP, to the UN Convention Against Corruption, the UNCAC. With us now in the studio is Dr. Noha Abdulaziz Kamel, HR and Services Advisor to the Chairman of Board of Directors of a major housing developer. Thank you very much, Dr. Noha, for joining us. A very good morning to you. And first of all, would you like to give us the, to elaborate for us on how does corruption indeed affect the quality of life, and how does fighting corruption improve the quality of citizens' lives?
Hello, Mohammed. Thank you. I'm very happy to be with you today.
Pleasure
it's a pleasure. First, talking about corruption, some people don't understand the meaning of corruption in its right meaning. The meaning of corruption is dishonest or illegal behavior, okay? But in this behavior, there has to be a taking, like giving and taking something to your advantage. So sometimes it's mixed up with unethical behavior and so on. It really affects life and affects our country and other countries, of course. Last time, the World Economic Forum estimated a cost of $2.6 trillion for corruption. So
Annually?
Yes, yearly. This is huge. This is how it affects us, deterring economic growth, affecting investments, everything. So now everything that's happening is really pushing forward anti-corruption environment.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, a record number of around 2,133 participants are participating in the event. Numbers say between 144 and 152 countries who had registered to participate in the event. Now, Dr. Noha, there are different types of corruption. There is administrative corruption, there is functional corruption, financial, I guess. I mean, you tell us about the types of corruption that exists and how best to fight them.
Mainly, all corruption is, doing the wrong thing and getting an advantage out of it. And we will really focus on administrative corruption because it starts all from there. So administrative corruption needs to stop. We need to control and, create a culture of having values inside the organization. Fighting administrative corruption, financial, anything, because it all sets in the same core of breaching trust, breaching what's right, and so on. Yeah.
So again, ministers, heads of anti-corruption bodies, and civil society members are present in that international convention. Dear viewers, Dr. Noha, Nile TV International's Hani Farag was there in Sharm el-Sheikh at the convention, and he conducted this interview with Her Excellency, the Planning Minister, Dr. Hala Saeed. So let's watch the interview and come back to continue our discussion.
It's a pleasure to have Dr. Hala Saeed, Minister of Planification. Great pleasure and honor to have you on Nile TV International.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yes, this 9th conference of the states parties to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption held in Egypt is the importance of this edition.
This edition of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, being held at the Peace City of Sharm el-Sheikh, is a great honor to us in Egypt, and it's a great recognition of Egypt's efforts in the issue of anti-corruption. Egypt has adopted its national anti-corruption strategy, and also has launched an anti-corruption academy, which is one of its kind in the region. That's a great effort that Egypt has conducted during the past few years. Also,
So this is an important opportunity in order to show the experience of Egypt in anti-corruption plan.
absolutely, that's an opportunity to showcase of Egypt's efforts in the anti-corruption agenda, because Egypt has taken several steps in the anti-corruption agenda. First, as I said, that we have the national strategy of anti-corruption. We launched an academy for capacity building and for research, which is one of its kind. The second is that we have adopted a digital transformation in all services, citizen services, that stops any intervention between the employee and the citizen in offering all services. We have also planning to move to the new administrative city, and this new administrative city is not only a physical transformation or a physical move. It's a move of a change of a mindset of the way the government manages all its services and manages all its procedures, because it's all a digital city that has, we have trained a lot of our employees in order to perform, to enhance their performance. Also, we have a lot of capacity building programs that we do, because corruption is not only the big corruption, sometimes it's the petty corruption. So change the mindset of our young people in order to know that integrity and transparency is core in all activities and all procedures.
What about young people use in your planning, in your yes, of course, you are our Minister of Planning. So youth has a lot of a great role in order to combat on the ground the corruption.
Absolutely. We do a lot of capacity building for the young people. There is an initiative that we're going to launch with the UN conference after tomorrow, which is an ambassadors of integrity. Yes. So we train young people at all universities and youth centers on the integrity and the ethics and the values of transparency, and there will be prizes for the best projects that we can, and best applications, and there will be a hackathon, which is a sort of competition again, different applications and technological application on these.
My last question will be about digitalization and the role of the digitalization on the ground in order to combat the corruption.
Of course, digitalization is core, because in digitalization you stop the intervention between the employee and the citizen. So there is no direct contact. So you minimize the level of interaction, and accordingly this minimizes the corruption and all misconduct. So digitalization, we have enhanced the investments in the infrastructure of digitalization by 300%. All now we have Misra Raqamiyya, which is the platform for providing all government services. We have 120 mobile units for services across all governorates that will help all citizens adhere to these type of services with little and minimum citizen intervention.
Yes. And helping also the economic growth.
Absolutely. All increase 1% increase in digitalization helps increase economic growth by 35%. So definitely this will help economic growth and of course will minimize all misconduct and will help the anti-corruption strategy.
Thanks a lot for all these details. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nile TV International's Hani Farag, and that was the interview with Dr. Hala Saeed, Planning Minister. Back to the studio now with Dr. Noha Abdulaziz Kamel. Now, Dr. Noha, you've heard the minister. She talked about a lot of axes, preventing corruption, training employees to fight corruption, the role of youth in fighting corruption, and the digitalization of fighting, digitalizing the systems in a way to fight corruption.
Yes.
Please, you talk to us about what most caught your attention in the interview.
It is a very important interview what Dr. Hala Saeed said, and the numbers she mentioned, because really digitalization is huge in combating corruption. We have 60% of our population are youth, okay? So this is a strong message to them, okay? We want to change the previous norms, as we say, because when you there is a difference between isolated events of corruption and systemic corruption. Isolated events of corruption, something that happens that's rare, an incident. So when everybody is doing the right thing and an incident happens, you can just directly combat it, okay? But if you go, and handle a systemic whole system of corruption, no, this is more difficult. So what we are doing now in Egypt is digitalizing and more digitalizing in everything in our life, and we all feel it. And this is really the best way to counter effect all the bad effects that were, in corruption before. And people are getting used to it, Muhammad,
Yeah.
People are getting more comfortable with this and getting more at ease with, okay, we're not seeing people, we're doing everything like online, and and it's better.
It's true.
Other than that, you create a comfortable environment in organizations and governmental institutions to really contain whistleblowers. Like if you come and tell me an incident of corruption, I'll protect you. Okay.
Yeah,
so
that's a very important.
This is a very important point, because people know what's happening and we see it, but they're too afraid or too shy to bring it up on the surface and deal with it.
Now, it was very interesting to listen to the Prime Minister, Dr. Madbouli, talk about corruption. He said that, corruption actually negatively affects human rights and also takes away from the confidence of the public sector and the economy at large, because and we've heard the Planning Minister saying that every decrease of corruption percentage-wise means an increase in growth.
Yes, definitely.
Growth numbers. Yeah.
Definitely, because you want to create a state and a government of transparency, as she said, accountability, and more opening up to everything that's right. So this is very important in this sector.
Right. This is the only legally binding universal anti-corruption instrument. So talk to us about the importance of such a convention, Dr. Noha, in your view. Again, this being the only legally binding universal anti-corruption instrument.
Definitely. This convention is, before it was in Dubai, before it was in Amman, and so on, and next year, and after 2 years, it will be in the USA. So it is a very important now, up-to-date actions and regulations, creating governance in government sectors. Yes.
And also, Dr. Noha, so back again to some terminology about the corruption and best means to fight it.
Yes.
Can you tell us about the importance of cooperation between the government and NGOs and whistleblowers in fighting different types of corruption, like administrative, like financial and others?
What you want to do, Mohammed, for any institution is creating a value-driven culture. Where we have values, we talk about values, but we don't live them. What we mean is we talk about vision, mission, and strategic, planning and results.
Right. We have to take a break now, Dr. Noha, and we'll be back momentarily, dear viewers, to continue our discussion. So please stay with us here in The Breakfast Show. Welcome back, dear viewers. Thank you for staying with us. The United Nations Convention Against Corruption came into force in December 2005 and has reached almost universal adherence, having been ratified by almost all United Nations member states, with 189 states as parties, the newest member states being Somalia and Suriname. So again, this is the only legally binding, Dr. Noha, convention as far as fighting corruption universally goes. The criminalization of corruption. The convention requires states to criminalize a wide range of acts of corruption, including not only classic acts of corruption such as bribery and embezzlement of public funds and so, but also others. So what are the non-classic? Can you give us some examples of the non-classic acts of corruption?
Okay, we really need to enhance and reinforce regulatory systems in organizations. So for that means activating administrative law. Administrative law is very important to combat any corruption inside the organization, creating an environment of governance inside the organization. And there are always steps for that. You need to commit to non-corruption laws and non-corruption culture. You need to assess what's going on. How can we assess either any type of corruption? How can we assess that? How can we measure what's going on inside the organization and so on? And after that, we need to commit to, as we say, communicate, teach and train, and go ahead, keep teaching and training and so on.
All right, yeah. and finally, Dr. Noha, could we say that leaking inside information, for instance, from a certain institution to affect its trading, for instance, in the stock exchange, do we have laws to fight against that and to to hold accountable those who do this?
Of course, but
Yeah.
we have now a lot of supervision channels, okay? And also we need to create an internal whistleblowing channel inside organizations in order to bring this up, because what happens is mostly these corruption cases are hidden. We need to expose them. How can we deal with something when we're not exposing it? When we expose something to the surface, then we say that it's wrong, and okay, and publicize it, and make it known that this is not okay, and so on. So it is from our side, as organizations, as units, and as the whole country, fighting and changing the old mindset, because it was sort of a norm before.
Finally, the significance of holding this conference in Egypt, of Egypt hosting this this conference, Dr. Noha. The significance.
And hosting this conference, the significance is huge. To be in our country, in the peace city, Sharm el-Sheikh, and just recently, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi celebrated the day for anti-corruption on the 10th of December. So it's all, as we say, a system, a whole system, and a message, a very strong message from the government to, okay, this is the time for waking up, fighting corruption. It's not just talking about it, it's living this anti-corruption culture.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Dear viewers, on that note, on behalf of you, we thank very much Dr. Noha Abdulaziz Kamel, HR and Services Advisor to Chairman of the Board of Directors of a major housing developer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Noha.
Thank you,
Thank
Muhammad.
you.
Thank you.
Hope to see you again. Dear viewers, please stay with us. My dear colleague Mahesti Rabia will be back to continue this episode of The Breakfast Show, and we're still talking about the Sharm el-Sheikh Convention Against Corruption, that major United Nations event here in Egypt, in the city of Peace. Please stay with us.